lace up those cleats and put on those mitts. It's time for another exciting edition of Our Little Yankees Podcast. Stepping up to the mic, it's the OLIP team.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome inside another brand spanking, exciting new episode of Our Little Yankees Podcast. We are on episode 18. We've also almost been on for 20 episodes. We're closing in on it. As always, I'm Julian Coltree, joined alongside my buddies, friends, pals, the one and only Josh Levin.
What up, what up?
And of course, fresh off of a very excused absence in the last episode of the podcast, Eric Ray Sepulveda. E-Ray, I know somber feelings. We went into it last week with Poppy Tito sadly having to be put down, but how do you feel? Are you doing all right? Is everything okay over there at the Sepulveda household?
Yeah, man. I mean, last week, thank you guys. I heard the podcast, of course.
And you had the 21 bark salute.
Yes. I was going to say, is that the first time I think both of your dogs, Cole and Rocco, barked? So they were appreciated. They were showing the love for Tito. Yeah, man. I mean, it's, as you can imagine, it's been pretty rough, pretty sad, but I'm all right now. But yeah, man, it's just great to be back talking to you guys, our OLIP family, as you said it last week. You guys show me love, and I'm glad to be back and talk Yanks, because that's what I do best, I think, is just talk and rant about the New York Yankees.
Oh, it's true. And it's funny because, as I mentioned to Josh on the podcast last week, it stunk that the 1 week that you weren't able to be on was actually the first week that there were Yankees baseball to actually discuss. And you were already in mid-season form on that first game when it came to tweeting. So how'd it feel to be back behind the Twitter keyboard?
I feel like, so I think I made this this statement in our group chat with like the rest of the guys, but I feel like when Yankees baseball ends, it's kind of like the end of a series or a season. So I'm like the series, right? A TV show. And when the Yankees are done, I really have nothing else to tweet about. But then, like, you know, we get the hot stove, so it gets going a little bit. That's like little teasers. And then we get right into March, we get spring. And like you said, Jules, I mean, I don't care if it's spring training, October baseball. I already have like 10 tweets by the second inning. So I am full go every time. I am ready to go. And yeah, I'm just glad to be back to tweeting to my fans. I know there are some fans like it. There are some fans that probably mute me, but you know what? Mute me, baby.
Mute, don't unfollow.
Yeah, mute.
Don't unfollow.
Don't unfollow. No, I can't take that. I can't take the unfollow. But yeah, man, just I hope I tweet more about good things with the Yankees this season. But you know how it goes. We'll see.
Listen, from the moment we started this podcast, we knew that one of the big aspects of ratings was going to be in-season Eric Ray Sepulveda. And we are approaching that cataclysmic event where we finally get real Yankees baseball games, and we have an opportunity to see E-Ray do what E-Ray does best, which really is just to be entertainment for one and all when it comes to the New York Yankees. So I, for one, am very excited about that. And this week on the podcast, we'll get an opportunity to get your thoughts and your feelings on the Yankees start in spring training. Josh and I will do what we did last week in breaking things down. But before anything, we have a big story to break. And I'm not going to beat around the bush, because when it comes to the Yankees, we've been scarred over the last couple of years. And yet another opportunity where we are going to be scarred, and it starts early, as it always seems to do. I saw somebody put it very nicely on Twitter earlier today. I understand injuries happen in baseball, but why do they have to be such a big part of the New York Yankees? And that person was spot on, because once again, the New York Yankees will be starting a season with a big injury that they just did not need. And it seems like we can't catch a break. So for those of you who weren't aware of it, who are listening to this podcast, it's Tuesday when we're recording this, but obviously we air it on Wednesday. Zac Britton wound up having a precautionary MRI earlier in the day on Tuesday. The results came back. First thing you obviously think about is Tommy John. Oh my God, this guy's not going to pitch for a year and a half. Thankfully, the Yankees got some good news, and maybe that's just one of the breaks that the Yankees need on an injury front, is not having it be catastrophic. But in the case of Zac Britton, it is a bone chip in his left elbow, so his throwing elbow. And there isn't a timetable according to Boone, But it seems as though if you had to make an educated guess, the Yankees won't be seeing this guy for probably until the start of the summer, maybe mid-June, late June, if not the All-Star break, which is not what you want. Second straight year, the Yankees have essentially lost one of their best bullpen pieces before the season really even got a chance to begin. Obviously, Canely did pitch a game last year, and now Britton won't get an opportunity before the season starts, but I digress. I'll start you off, guys, with an easy one, and that is, what were your initial reactions when you heard about the Zac Britain injury and kind of knew that odds are this guy is not going to be ready for opening day?
Yeah, he's definitely not, going to be ready for opening day now that we know exactly what the diagnosis is. I guess in the beginning of the day when news first broke that he, was experiencing some soreness in the elbow, whatever, like you said, the first thing you think of when it's an elbow is Tommy John. So when you find out that it's, a bone chip, you, I guess, are happy that it's not.
Exhale.
Yeah, you exhale a little bit because, all right, he's not going to be there for the start of the season, but at least we'll have him at some point, assuming that there's no setbacks. And I'm knocking on all the wood I can possibly knock on when I say that. But it sucks because he's a huge part of their bullpen. He is, in my opinion, the best reliever on the team at this point. And, the thing is with the Yankees, we have high hopes for this rotation and what the guys like Tyone and Kluber can bring to the table. But at the end of the day, the backbone of this team is the bullpen. And Britton is the best pitcher in that bullpen. You can make a case he's the second best pitcher on the team entirely. And this is a big blow. And it's going to be interesting to see how they go about shuffling the deck. We all know that they'll be okay. At the end of the day, they'll be fine. But it is obviously concerning. And yet again, another, like you said, another big injury, to start the season off on the wrong foot.
Yep.
I mean, for weeks and weeks, we said, we know the injuries are coming. We know the injuries are coming, right? And you wish that we were wrong. We would like to be wrong about these things, but unfortunately we weren't. And yeah, when you guys put in the group chat that this happened, what did I do? I panicked. As you saw my tweet, I said, what's the point of hoping for the Yankees? Like, what's the point of hoping for the best when everyone's healthy? Because that's never the case. And then on my drive back home to my mom's, I saw the tweet that Zac Britton is just a bone chip and it's not Tommy John. So I was relieved. I mean, like Josh was saying, it still sucks because we saw in the postseason last year, Zac Britton was such an important piece of that bullpen. He was the one getting really, other people did great jobs, but he probably did the best job out of everyone. And just losing that right away to start the season is just, it hurts. But hopefully, again, as we always do, he doesn't have any setbacks, like Josh said, and he's there in July, August, ready for the All-Star break, and he's just, just ready to get going again. But it just sucks all the time because, it's the last couple seasons, you usually have one domino that falls, and then the next day it's just another injury. Hopefully that's not the case. I really hope that. We hope that. But yeah, I'm just bummed because, again, he's so important to this team and to that bullpen.
As I said, maybe it's a blessing in disguise that it was only a small injury. And granted, no injury is small, but it's a bone chip in his elbow rather than a tear of his ligament. And he needs Tommy John. And then, like Canely, odds are maybe you never even see him pitch as a Yankee again. But it's worth kind of discussing now, what does this mean and where do the Yankees go from here? I'll kind of start it off by saying, and I don't think this is a stretch, Zac Britton may have been the most important person that the Yankees couldn't afford to have lost to injury. And I'll lay it out like this. When I think of the guys on this team who could get injured, there aren't a lot of guys out there who you look at and you say, the Yankees will be able to be fine if they lose him. But Zac Britton, to me, is one that trumps all those others because we've seen what happens when this bullpen does not have enough arms in it. Just look at Tommy Canely last year. They lose Tommy Canely, and then by the end of that 60-game stretch, and that was a shortened season, the bullpen was gassed, and in the playoffs, it really couldn't get anything done, and it was an issue, especially when you factored in the fact that the Yankees really didn't have the starting pitching, and there are a lot of question marks this year, which brings me to the point that you look at this team, their strength is still the bullpen at full strength, whether it's Chad Green or Zac Britton or Chapman or any of the other guys that you put in there. It's important for them to be operating at full strength. Anybody else goes down, there's usually a next man up. Aaron Judge goes down, Giancarlo Stanton goes down, Frazier goes down. There's enough outfield guys who we've seen be able to pick up. Urshela goes down, defense might not rebound, but Miguel Andujar, he'll have his opportunity to prove himself. Even in the starting rotation, there's a very good fifth man spot going back and forth between Devi Garcia and Domingo Ramon that we'll get into a little later on in the pod, where if one guy goes down, at least you know you have a fifth starter who you can kind of slide in there. But now, outside of a couple of names who you might say this guy could be the potential replacement in the bullpen for Zac Britton, there is not a guy who's going to give you the ability. There isn't a guy who's going to get shut down innings. And there isn't a guy that you could plug into the closer role if something happened to Aroldis Chapman, heaven forbid, knock on wood, like what happens with Zac Britton. So, I mean, it is tough to say that essentially a setup guy is the guy you couldn't afford to lose on your team. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he was the guy, at least for me, because the bullpen is really the Yankees' best part of their team. It's the part that has the least amount of question marks. And now you just throw a big question mark in there to a guy who Josh already kind of laid out might be the best pitcher on the team outside of Garrett Cole.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that guy is the guy that they can't afford to lose more than anyone else. Cole, I mean, if they lost, I mean, I don't even want to say those words.
Just wrap up the pod.
He's the least replaceable person on the team, in my opinion. And I don't really think it's close. I mean, Britton is definitely one of them because you laid out the reasons, right? Like, we have seen what happens to this bullpen when guys go down. And last year is a great example when they lost Canely, you know, they never really were able to pick up the slack, and Britton is even better and more important to the team than Canely had been in the previous seasons. I said this before, and I still feel this way, that they'll be okay because Chapman is reliable, especially in the regular season. In the regular season, E-Ray, I know. Chad Green, you know, we all have our feelings towards him, but he's been a very good pitcher. Justin Wilson is back, and he's been really good as well. We like Darren O'Day. So there are enough guys that they can pick up the slack in the regular season when they're playing teams, you know, that may not be a factor in October. But the worry is that this could lead to setbacks or something like that. And, you know, like you both have laid it out, when there's never just one. There's always the first injury and then the next ones. So we don't know what else is to come. But the point being is that I still think when push comes to shove, whenever Britton comes back, whether that's June, July, maybe even May, if we're lucky, they'll still be fine. It's just a matter of making sure that he's at full health when it's time for him to come back.
Yeah. And I mean, what this means is that there's a lot more responsibility and pressure on these other guys, right?
Yeah. Already
last season in the postseason, that Loaisaika was thrown into some pretty big moments. So yep. I don't know what the Yankees are going to do. Britton was the eighth inning guy. I'm not sure if it's going to, if it's going to be Wilson, if it's going to be O'Day, if it's going to be Green, or if they just do eighth inning by committee, depending on the day. But, it's going to Nick Nelson, who has looked pretty good this spring. Yep. He's going to have more reps out there. Loaisaika, I said, unfortunately, I mean, he didn't look good in the first game, but Mike King probably, right? And then you have Sessa, the Sessa fan club. We remember where we wanted him to do well, but so far
maybe it's time for Luis Sessa to be the setup man.
Take
over Britton.
After looking this spring, I don't know. I might have to remove myself from the fan club.
See his line today? Not great.
Yep. He'll still be on the roster, though. We all know that.
I still have his fat head here just in case he as well. But yeah, man, no. The good thing is, though, in a sense that, the Yankees, I mean, themselves, they love their bullpen. So they do have a lot of arms. And we're just going to see where it's kind of going to be like plug-in, right? Committee.
Yep, plug and play.
Who pitches well. If you don't pitch well, then – you're not going to pitch, and hopefully this opens up 2 spots, right? two.
There's now a second spot that's open now. Yeah,
Exactly. So we're gonna see who gets it.
It's funny. I feel like the one person who truthfully has been missed over the last 2 years, and he will go down as, I don't know if most underappreciated is the right word, but definitely is a little bit underappreciated, at least in recent memory, is Dylan Betances. Because, man, when you think of how good Dylan really was for this team, and the fact that essentially when he was healthy, you could put him anywhere and his stuff was that good. It is funny to think, just like I said, kind of almost how underappreciated he really was, because you know what, if Britton goes down, at least you know you have a guy who has been in the setup role and was dominant in it in Betances. And the Yankees obviously are 2 years removed to him really being on the team, and 3 if you count the fact that he barely pitched that last year he was here because of the injuries with everything going on. But just a guy that you give a shout out to because of how good he was as a Yankee, and somebody that you really looked at as like, man, this guy was really good. But
I'm gonna say another name that you guys are both gonna want to puke, but Adam Ottavino.
Wow, yeah, you're right. It's true.
The thing is, though, with Ottavino, he would look great right now since Britton's out. But we used his money, right, to sign.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
They
Wilson, O'Day, and Gardner. So that is more quantity, and so I think we all talked about it. We were kind of done with Ottavino, but yeah, I mean, of course, he would have looked great in that bullpen. But we got the other guys, so I'll take the other guys right now. Ottavino's great in Boston, though. He's gonna,
especially against the Yankees.
Especially against the Yankees, we're gonna our righties, baby.
Speaking of names to kind of throw out there, Josh, you had mentioned this to us earlier in the day. Obviously, Joel Sherman did a nice article on this gentleman earlier in the day, and that is Lucas Litage. He is a guy who has not pitched in the majors in, I believe, 6 years at this point.
Yep.
But he has looked dominant in the spring. He had 2 very good outings, including mowing down the heart of the Phillies order in the last opportunity he got to play in spring training. This is the opportunity to step up if you're somebody who wants to impress the Yankees brass. And from that article that Joel Sherman wrote, it seemed like the Yankees front office was very impressed with him and wanted to give him an opportunity to pitch for this team. And now, because of Britton, he probably will not only get the opportunity to showcase himself in spring training, but there might be a spot waiting for him on the opening day roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think he opened some eyes last week. I guess over the weekend against the Phillies, like you said, he struck out Didi, Harper, and McCutchen.
And he looked nasty doing it.
Yeah, he did. He did. His secondary pitches are really good. He doesn't throw hard. His fastball average is about like 90 miles per hour or so, but his secondary stuff really makes the fastball play well with it. But I was looking into it a little bit more. He hasn't, besides those 3 guys, he hasn't really faced a ton of major league quality hitters yet this spring. But when you have the numbers that he's putting up, the strikeout totals, the amount of swings and misses that he's drawing, and you add that to the improved spin rate on his pitches, which has come out in the last couple of days or so, this data, you have the makings of something here. Now, we don't know what it is yet, but I think now with Britton getting hurt, the fact that there's really now going to be a firm possibility that this guy has an opportunity to make the team, I think he's going to start seeing a little bit, I don't want to say high leverage because it's spring training, but he's going to probably start to face some more major league quality hitters rather than, the minor leaguers that play towards the end of these games. So I'm really interested to see if this leads to anything. I think he was somebody to watch before this happened, not to necessarily make the opening day roster, but just to see this guy maybe goes to Scranton and earns his way onto the roster later in the season. But I think now he's firmly someone to watch. I don't want to say that he's the favorite because it's March 9th still. We're still so
there's a lot of games left. Yeah.
There's a lot of games to play. There's a lot of guys that are going to have a chance now to show something, Licky among them. But I think he's my number 1 guy to watch at this point. I'm very interested to see if this leads to anything. Kind of just happened out of nowhere too, because he hasn't pitched, like you said, Jules, in the majors since 2015. That's a long time to be away from the majors and to be doing what he's doing right now, despite the fact that it's March does catch the eye. So I'm interested to see where this goes.
And before you go, Ray, the one thing I just want to point out is in that Joel Sherman article, the one thing they really hampered on is spin rate. And it's funny to really look at how the Yankees have kind of, I guess,
They love it.
improved themselves
Yeah.
with this analytical pitching style over the last 2 years. Obviously, that's all you heard about with Cole down in Houston. That's all you heard about how these pitchers were improving themselves. And now it seems like the Yankees are pretty much all in on it. And as long as it keeps working, and it worked for Garrett Cole last year, and at least through these 2 spring games, it looks like Corey Kluber and Jamison Tyone are looking good as well, then you fully embrace that. But I do understand where you're coming from on that point, Josh. And Ray, feel free to take it over.
And I mean, like, the thing is, right, you read the article and you kind of want to pull for the guy, right? Because he hasn't since 2016. It's an incredible story. And now it seems like he legit has a real shot at making it. So I think we're all pulling for the guy. And you guys mentioned the spin rate. I have the actual StatCast data here that Views from 314 tweeted out. So the league averages last year for spin rate was fastball 2,306, curveball 2,532, and slider 2,441. And I guys, what, Litige? Is that it?
Litige.
I told you, remember, I was going to say, I kept trying to say it in my head and I still messed it up, but Litige, there we go. His fastball spin rate was 2,770. His curveball was 2,866, and his slider was 2,801. So you can see right there, guys, versus the average spin rate, the Yankees were impressed with this guy. And I think I read in the article as well, the Yankees were interested in him last year. He picked between the Oakland A's and the Yankees. He thought he had a better shot with the A's, actually, because they were the smaller market team. And look what happened. The A's were the best bullpen in baseball last year, so he didn't get a shot. And then the Yankees came calling again. I got to say, guys, when the Yankees are fixated on you, they keep calling you. So it's he has an opportunity. You guys mentioned it. He's faced 11 hitters this spring, struck out 8 of them. That spin rate, I mean, so far on paper, it's looking good. On the screen, it's looking good. He just has to keep it going for the rest of March. And I think, as Josh was saying, he has a really good shot at making the team here. He's just got to keep it going. I hope he does.
We'll have to see. Absolutely. It'll be a storyline to watch for sure. And when it boils down to it, the Yankees, as you guys both pointed out, have plenty of time to understand what exactly their opening day roster is going to be, because opening day essentially is still, 21 days away, give or take, So when you think about what the Yankees can potentially do, it'll be interesting to see. And let's keep on pitching a little bit. And we'll go into now sort of the stuff we've seen in spring training. The big storyline is obviously who is the 5th starter going to be, because you have Domingo Germán and Deivi Garcia duking it out. And we will get to that in a little bit. But the one guy we haven't really talked about here on this podcast, and I feel like needs a little bit of love and needs a little bit of a breakdown of what we can kind of expect or what you guys hope to see from him this year, is Jordan Montgomery. Because the fact is, Montgomery has been penciled into that 4 spot and is essentially guaranteed to be in the top 4 of the rotation. He, of course, came off of Tommy John surgery a couple of years ago. Last year, he pitched fine. He wasn't really anything that good. He had 44 innings of work, wound up going 2-3. He had an over 5 ERA, showed some flashes. There are games where he looked really good. I know a lot of people like to call him Andy Pettitte-esque because he has that same sort of fancy delivery. He's a lefty, has a good pickoff move. Obviously, we're not confusing him with Andy Pettitte because he's nowhere near that pedigree, but that same sort of presence on the mound, I guess you could say. So this guy's our 4. What do you think we can honestly expect from him? And what would you consider going into the season realistic expectations for Jordan Montgomery?
I mean, it's tough to say. It's been, 2019, he pitched two games, and last year he pitched 10. In 2018, he pitched 6 before he got hurt. So it's really been a long time since we've seen a full season of Montgomery. I mean, he's 28 years old now, and the last time he pitched a full season was his rookie year. He was 24. So it's been a long time.
Let me ask you before you answer, Josh.
Yeah.
On that point, do you think him being the 4 starter should be as much of a shoo-in as it seems?
Yeah, because I don't really think they have many other options that are better. I think he has shown enough flashes throughout his career to, that spot should be his. They're not going to carry both Herman and Garcia, for example, in their rotation without Montgomery in it. There's no reason to do that. And we'll get into that more when we discuss the fifth starter competition. But yeah, no, I think what I'd like to see is 2017 Montgomery, when he had a 3.88 ERA, 29 games. He finished sixth in the Rookie of the Year voting. I would like to think that he can do that again. His velocity has been better since he came back from the surgery. I don't really want to count those 2 games in 2019 because it was only 4 innings. So last year was, for all intents and purposes, his first go at it since the surgery. And even that was only 44 innings in 10 games. So yeah, like I've been saying, it's hard to say what they're going to get from him or what you can even reasonably expect. The good news is that he's pitched really well in the spring so far. I mean, it's only been 5 innings, but he has a 1.8 ERA. He's looked real good. He looked really good the other afternoon. Sorry, I should say. Was that Sunday?
Sunday, I believe, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think the expectations are, it's tough to say where they're at, but I think people are starting to feel a little bit hopeful. That's the sentiment I'm getting from reading Twitter and stuff, is that people are starting to think, okay, now this could be something. I know he had that story last week with the Pettit and CC texts. Yeah. Yankee fans love that stuff. I'm one of those people that loves that stuff. So yeah, no, I mean, 2017 Montgomery is all we really have to go off of in terms of what this guy can do in a full season. And that was good. So why not? Let's shoot for that.
I'll do you one better. He pitched a hell of a game in the playoffs last year.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
And that, more than anything, is what I really think about when I see, what do I want this guy to do? Now, granted, do I think his season can replicate what he gave in that one playoff game, which is a 2 ERA, and he struck out a bunch of guys? And even though he only went 4 innings, he was really dominant in doing it. And I always think of that one at bat where he had that really crisp curveball that Higashioka kept saving to finally be able to get that big strikeout, something that Gary could never even hope to do behind the plate. No, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. But that's what we're hoping for. So I think if he's somewhere in between that, the 2017 that you bring up, Josh, and last year's ALDS win to get the Yankees to Game 5 versus Tampa Bay, then they would be in really good shape, and they'd be able to rely on a guy who is a 4 starter, so you're not expecting him to be your ace, but could give you genuinely good performances every 5th day.
He doesn't, that's the thing, right? He doesn't need to be the ace. That's right. He just, like you said, he just needs to be consistent and show this consistency, stay healthy throughout the whole season. And if he does that, if we get shades of what he did in the ALDS last year, if we get shades of what he did in 2017, then that's a damn good number 4 type pitcher that the Yankees will have. Because we keep talking about, like you said, Jules, Tyon and Kluber, about these guys, but Montgomery's a big piece of this rotation too. And we also want him to be a big contributor. And he's very key to, the long-term success of this rotation and this Yankee season. So him having a good spring, good start off. I was reading the other day that he also lost weight. We always say these players have come into
that's a big storyline, is everybody losing weight this year.
One thing, if I ever go into spring training, you're never going to say that about me, baby, because I always wait. I'm just kidding. But I'm not kidding. Look at my jeans size. Anyway, but yeah, man, if Montgomery could just stay consistent, stay reliable, I think that curveball, I think it was Didi Gregorius. He struck him out. Was it Didi? I think it was Didi, but he threw some nasty curveball, and we've seen him throw those breaking balls, and it was like, I think one of the nastiest pitches I've seen him thrown. If he can just do that, man, it's going to be a good year for Montgomery. But
he's got really good stuff. I think that's one of the things to kind of always think about. And I feel like this is the mantra for like the Yankees 3rd and 4th starter every year. It's wow, especially the 3. It's always, man, this guy has unbelievable stuff. Think of Michael Pineda, James Paxton. Now, obviously Montgomery's the 4, but if he was the 3, it would be that same sentiment. Oh man, the curveball is great. He's got great. He can run inside with a fastball. He just knows how to work around
hitters.
Yeah, if he just puts it all together, you're going to have an unbelievable pitcher. So, the Yankees have the benefit now, as you guys both mentioned, that they don't need him to put it all together, except for every fourth day because that's when he's going to be pitching. He's not going to be pitching in these must-win games versus the other team's ace. They already have a guy in Garrett Cole who has it all together and is going to do phenomenally when he does it. But it is interesting to see. But he does have great stuff, and so I would be encouraged if he puts in a good season.
Totally. I mean, I think we all kind of hit on it, right? He's an important piece of what we hope to do, or I shouldn't say we, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Of what they hope to do. So yeah, no, I mean, I think like we've seen flashes. So why not now? You know, why not now for him to get it all together and actually deliver when he's finally healthy for the first time in 4 years for a full season?
I have a pressing question because I think you and me, Josh, are going to differ from E-Ray on this. Are you pro we or pro them when it comes to discussing your sports teams?
No, I'm fine saying we, but I feel
know
like
some
maybe
people are big sticklers. E-Ray, I know, is a big we guy when it comes to it.
I'm fine with we.
I am the Yankees, all right? No. I make the Yankees more famous than a Yankee hat can. Is that the words? It's been a while.
No, he made a Yankee hat more famous than a Yankee.
There we go. Well, I make the Yankees more famous than the Yankees can.
At least on Twitter.
That's true. Erase Twitter.
No, but I'm a big we guy. I know you're not supposed to say it, but I'm not a journalist.
That's true. You're right.
I'm not a journalist.
Podcast host.
I'm a
personality.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a podcast host and a personality in your ratings. So, you know.
So take that. The name that I'm not gonna give that guy. We know who it's on. We know who.
But there are a lot of. That's what I'm saying. There are a lot of people out there who like to come at the we people, and just because Josh corrected himself, I was like, that's an interesting question.
I corrected myself because people don't like it, but I shouldn't do that. I should just say what I mean, right?
Say what you mean. I was thinking about that today. And, you know, I think if you're about we, then, you know, we is for me. I
mean, I think Josh made this point, not to go into a whole whatever, but I think Josh made the point, like, we kind of, you know, we watch all these games. We invest money in this team. I know we're not actually playing the game, but we're still a big part of this whole dynamic, which is Yankees baseball in a way.
What are the Yankees without fans?
Exactly. That's what Josh was saying.
Yeah.
Even they said it. They said they wanted the fans back last year. And guess what, baby? We're coming back.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited about it.
This summer or something.
Hopefully as we get closer to opening day, we can figure out if the Yankees actually are going to allow fans in the building. Because that was the rumor. Because
I think they are now.
The governor mentioned it, but I haven't seen anything about actual capacity or what's going on with the ticket sales yet. But
StubHub, I think StubHub thinks so because I just looked yesterday. I think Josh looked at StubHub for the first time, right, for Knicks tickets 2 weeks. Yeah. I looked for the first time today, just seeing Yankees tickets. So Yankee tickets right now for opening day going for $440.
The tickets are available to buy.
They're available to buy. So we'll see.
I will say this though, this is on this topic. I had a mini 9-game plan for 2020 that obviously I didn't get to use that. And you guys know this already, but I carried it over into 2021. And then I've been in contact with the people over there at the ticket office. And I got, you know, they gave me the 9 games, not exactly the same games and the same times and all that, you know, but I don't want to get into that right now. But anyway, I followed up with them.
Call them out. Call out your seat. No.
All right, fine. I'll call them out.
Call them out.
Last year, I had a 9-game ticket package that I got as a gift. And the ticket, you know, it was the lowest level package you could get. So it wasn't like I got games against the Red Sox and the Mets and stuff like that. But I did have the Astro game in the first game back at the stadium in September, which I'm really angry that I'll never have that opportunity to do that again.
COVID
but the tickets were a nice mix of day games and night games. This one that they have lined out for me is all weekday afternoons, except for maybe 1 or 2. I work during the day.
What do they think? You work overnights? That's my plan.
They had the wrong guy. They had the wrong guy. But anyway, so I asked them. I was like, first of all, what the hell? Can I switch this? They said no. And then I said, well, what about what's going on with, you know, the fans in the stadium? Are these the actual games I'm going to get to go to? Because now, you know, you're not having 50,000 people in there. You're going to have like 5,000 people in there. If everything goes as what has been reported. They don't know. And they said that the guy said to me that they would send an email out when that info becomes available to them. That was 2 weeks ago. There hasn't been anything sent. to me that I've seen. So maybe I missed it, but yeah, there's going to be, the tickets are available. There's going to be people there, but people at the Yankees, and it's probably not their fault. They're probably waiting for the local government and health officials or whatnot. They don't know how it's going to work in terms of, like, if you have a season ticket plan, are you actually going to be able to go to that game, or does that ticket go to somebody else because we can only have a certain number of people there? What I'm saying is nobody knows.
I would say, see, that was a nice way to put it. And
I got a question, actually.
That the Yankees tried to screw you over like that, Dave.
I got a real quick question. Josh, has it been the same guy that's been contacting you?
I think at one point it switched over because the person who was originally, I think he left.
Yes. So this is what I've been hearing. I have sources inside the TikTok community that, well, not sources. It's like people that are other sources, but they have season tickets as well. And they've said that they keep talking to, like, at least I think they're on their 5th ticket rep guy. It's because apparently the one they keep talking to keeps dropping like flies. There's something going on over there. I mean,
interesting.
Since it's still a pandemic and whatever, like jobs and stuff. But yeah, man, like, so it's kind of, I heard it's kind of a messy situation over there. So maybe that's
interesting.
Very, very intriguing. This might be something we have to have investigative reporter Eric Ray Sepulveda figure out what is actually happening at the Yankees ticket office.
I'm lined outside Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, see, that's what we're gonna do. Live hits next time on the next episode of the podcast. We'll see whether or not you are. At least when they come back, we'll have you do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we still got some spring training to discuss, especially because E-Ray didn't get an opportunity to really talk about watching into the games last week. So let's kind of dive in. First things first, we've been talking about the pitchers. So let's talk about this 5th starter competition. At this point, Domingo Germán pitched a game. Deivi Garcia just got finished the 2nd game today, which was immaculate. They both look really good. We've all said how we want Deivi to be the guy to start that 5th game for the Yankees, that first go around in the rotation, to be that 5th starter for the season. I think we all sort of say that it will most likely be Germán, though Germán was really good in that first game that he pitched. So we don't really need to go that much more in depth other than kind of chewing on a little bit of the numbers that we've seen and saying what you guys think first couple of starts in of this 5th starter competition.
Yeah, well, like you said, Germán looked really good over the weekend, or was it Friday? I get the dates mixed up, but he looked really good. And
you're telling me I got a parking ticket today.
Yeah, he looked really good, and Garcia looked good today from what we could tell. The game wasn't on TV, so we didn't actually get to watch. But yeah, no, I think nothing has really changed for me. I still think that it's going to be Germán's spot to lose at the end of the day.
Service time.
Service time. Work. They want to manage Garcia's innings and whatnot, and all that stuff. That's really what it comes down to, in my opinion. I don't really think anything is going to play out in a way that'll change that, unless there's an injury, which again I'm knocking on the wood, or if Germán just absolutely bombs horrendously to the point where it's like we have no idea what this guy even is anymore. But yeah, I don't see that happening. So for me, it's been fun to watch and follow along because we obviously we are rooting for Garcia to get that spot. And we in general just are interested in watching him progress as a major leaguer. So from that perspective, it's fun because there's a little bit of a competition alive, and but to be honest with you, I don't really view it as a competition. I think it's more of a somewhat of a certainty that it's going to be Germán at the end of the day. There's still a part of me hoping that they pick Deivi, but I mean, you guys both made great points. I mean, Deivi Garcia, if there's like certain day games or double headers, we might see Deivi Garcia if they need like another spot starter like mid-April, right? End of April. I don't know that soon, but I'm saying hopefully if they like continue to stay healthy. But yeah, I would love to see Deivi Garcia more because I think when we talked about who would you rather see, we just want to see him continue to grow. We saw that promising. But the fact that Germán is pitching well is good as well because it just gives us more ammunition when it comes to that point, right? When it comes to our pitching and having that reliability when it comes to our pitching staff. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I still think there's maybe a chance that there's Deivi Garcia, or maybe I'm just hoping for that.
I think agree with Josh's sentiment that and your sentiment as well. There is a chance that it will be Devi Garcia, but it will essentially be if something happens to Domingo Germán. And the only thing, if you want Devi to get that final spot, you can kind of hope for is either, as Josh said, he just absolutely gets shelled his next couple of starts and has a terrible ERA while Devi and terrible, stats on paper as Devi keeps pitching really well, or something happens, that means he gets hurt or something else. For him, the most important thing he can do is keep pitching well and keep his head down and keep being good and keep learning his lesson and putting himself in a position like that. Because as we've talked about extensively on this podcast, those are the real issues regarding Domingo Germán. I think the fact is, if he had pitched and hadn't had so many off the field issues and this was an injury, you'd be excited to see what he would be doing, and you'd be really encouraged with what he kind of did in those first couple of innings that he pitched a couple of days ago. So, you have the opportunity to see what he'll ultimately go and what he'll ultimately do. But he's another guy who, he proved it 2 years ago, has really good stuff. And when he's on, it's not as if the Yankees are picking a guy pitching wise who shouldn't and won't be as good as Devi Garcia if they're both on. There was a reason he won 18 games back in 2018 and why he was so dominant and why we said he really, hurt the Yankees when he went and did all that off the field stuff.
Do you think that they would do do you think they would do a 6-man rotation or probably not?
No,
I'm interested about that because
now with Britton getting hurt, I don't know.
This has been a big topic, I think, in baseball in general, which I don't think we've really touched on, is how these teams are going to manage these workloads this year coming off of a 60-game season where most starters only pitch 12 games in the regular season plus playoffs if they made it. So it is, I don't think, and I think Boone has addressed it. He said that I don't think that they're going to do that. They're going to look to do that at the beginning of the season, but I think they will mix in a 6th guy at certain points in the season, a spot starter here.
That's where Garcia comes in. If Germán,
that's where, right, exactly. And maybe at some point, Germán or Garcia, actually gets into the rotation for some reason, whether that's an injury or somebody's performance is lacking, whatever it is.
Yeah,
he's probably the next guy up. But you still have Clark Schmidt, you still have Michael King, and we have our trade deadline acquisition, Luis Severino, coming back at some point in the summer. So, I don't think they're going to do a 6-man, but I am interested to see how they're going to manage these innings because we know the Yankees are very cautious. And on top of that, they have a few guys, 3 guys in their rotation, assuming Germán makes it, that have barely pitched, that haven't really pitched since 2019. So it's going to be interesting to see how they slice that up. And E-Ray, you said it before. That is where maybe Garcia comes in, to make an impact early in the season rather than later on, is maybe he's the guy that helps them bridge, certain stretches of the season when there's a lot of games, 7 games in 7 days or whatever it is,
But now I'm wondering is do they bring him in to go as long as he can go, or do they bring him in like an ALDS situation where, no, seriously, it is, because they do love bullpen games where
they do. And
depending on which team and which lineup, they plan this out with, which pitchers to attack that lineup. So it could be a situation where Devi Garcia, we only see him three innings, or, you know what I mean?
My hope would be that they aren't that redundant, especially if
they want him to continue to grow, right?
No, not just have him continue to grow. What would be the dumbest thing, and, sorry to put it so bluntly, but what would be the dumbest thing that the Yankees could do if they are trying to make sure that their players are healthy and rested coming off of a 60-game season where they have to play 162? And that is
do what I just said.
Doing what they did, which was the dumbest thing that they could have done in the playoffs, and now doing it multiple times over the course of the season. So literally, and it's not you, but that idea,
I had to ask.
That school of thought would be supremely stupid. And that's the best way I can. That's what it would be. So I would hope that they would never do that.
And nothing that they did in the regular season with Garcia last year suggests that that's how they would use him this time. He came in to the rotation because they had a need for him at the time. Over the summer, they only really got gimmicky in the playoffs, and I feel like that happens a lot. that these managers and teams overthink things in the postseason that they don't in the regular season. Everything in the postseason is scripted, literally down to a T, as far as they can possibly do it. I don't know if
And who's to say they even
It's
did
not
it if
wrestling.
they weren't playing the Rays or Kevin Cash, the guy who they were trying to outthink.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but I just think in the regular season there's it's less serious.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're scripting the regular season games out the same way. I think they know like matchups that they prefer and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
especially with 162 games now too. So you don't, when it was 60 games, I don't like to. I like to say every game's important because when you start off April bad, you're like, oh, we wish we had those games left. But with 162 games, like you said, Josh, it is like least important, I guess, in a way, because 60 season, like kind of every of those, counted in that sense.
If the Nationals have proven anything, it's that you can be terrible in the first month and a half.
That's
of
true.
The season
That is true.
and still win a World Series and go on a big time run. And that's really what we have to remember this year, as opposed to last year, where it seemed like every one win was almost worth 10 or whatever, they mentioned in terms of equating the 60 games to the 162. Speaking of a guy who did not have a good 60 games, a guy who is looking to rebound for the 162, a guy who I am a certified A+ grade A hater of, and who I did pick to be my spring training MVP, and so far that's coming to fruition, despite any semantics that Eric Ray Sepulveda might say that there are. Gary Sanchez, folks, he has been off the charts to start the spring training cycle. And look, the fact is, I said this today when Talking Yanks tweeted that this should hush all the Gary Sanchez haters. Doesn't matter how good you are on March 9th if you still start the season batting 100 and you don't hit any home runs. So there's still a large possibility that could happen. But for now, Gary Sanchez's offense in his 6 spring training games, he is 4 for 11. He has 3 homers. He has 2 walks. He has a 1.64 OPS. He does have 3 strikeouts, but he has looked more confident behind the plate. And defensively speaking, he's been very good, and that includes no errors and a couple of caught stealings, as well as 24 innings caught behind the plate. So far, Gary is doing what he needs to do, which is showing up, playing baseball, looking good while doing it. And so the question becomes, are you going to buy that this is the new Gary Sanchez come opening day?
No, I'm not, because
I'm glad that was your answer.
I'm too scarred from the past to do that. But what I will say is this. I'm looking at his spring training stats, his career spring training stats, and last spring training, before it got cut short, he was slashing 087, 154, 217 with 1 home run in 23 at-bats. If he was doing that right now, we'd all be freaking out. We would not be happy.
And you have to get the same type of argument where it's like, oh, it's only spring in the same way. So
exactly. Well, it's only spring. It's only spring, but you can be happy that he's at least looking good. And that's where I feel. That's how I feel.
I want to go off of that because here's the thing. I'm a big, it doesn't matter what happens in March guy. But what I will truly say is these are reps that matter. The fact of the matter is just like in August, you're going to go through good and bad stretches. Seeing how a guy performs right now gives you the clues that his stance is working for him, gives you the clues that he's seeing the ball well, gives you the clues that he's being pitched to the way that you want him to be pitched to. So I do agree with you guys, and sometimes say maybe that logic of thinking of that spring training doesn't really matter as long as you get through it and you bat terribly, because you could go on a great tear at the beginning of the year. Even though I like that mantra, that doesn't mean that you can completely downplay it. And not that you guys are, but some people definitely do.
I think the biggest thing for Gary, because look, we're not the ones that said it. Everyone has always said he's the best hitter in that lineup. He has the most talent. I mean, Aaron Judge
said it. Yep.
Judge said he could win MVP. I don't know about that, but I think he was just being a great teammate, which, I mean, that's good. Gary needs to hear that. I think I
was guilty of that in like 2018 probably, but then I saw how absolutely.
I mean, if Gary continues to if Gary continues to tear the ball like this, he has a good chance. But I think the big thing for Gary, man, is just feeling good, feeling confident at the plate. Because last year he lost his spot. He lost his spot in the postseason. He lost it to Higgy, and that was the first time that happened to him. And, going into the offseason, that probably, I know he says, like, I'm Gary and I feel good. I don't pay attention to everyone.
But so Gary.
That's what we all say in a way, right? It had to take some type of mental toll on him, and that's why he went to the Dominican Republic. He played winter ball, get more reps, did a good job there. And right now he's doing pretty well offensively and defensively. And if he can get into that mindset and he could be confident at the plate and feel good going into the season. And again, we're not going to know if it's going to translate into the regular season. But yeah, we should be happy about how he's hitting and playing defensively right now. We hope he gets it going in the season, in the regular season.
I think you guys are both hitting it. I just want to say that it's good that we said this when he went down to the Dominican League, that he's realizing that, everything matters. He's not just getting this job just because he's Gary Sanchez and he has an all-star pedigree. He can't live off of 2016 and 2017 for the rest of his career. And I don't know if that's what he was doing, but that's kind of like the narrative that you create for yourself as a fan is like, well, what the hell's going on with this guy? It's important that he went to the Dominican League because he realized that there was work to be done. It's important that he's doing what he's doing right now in spring because you guys said it, these reps matter. And yeah, I mean, that's all I really have to say on the Gary thing. I'm encouraged.
I think it, like, for him, I mean, we've seen it with your stance and your batting. I think a Views from 314 writer tweeted earlier today that his timing looks impeccable. That's why his timing looks great right now in spring. I really do. I think it comes down to mentally for Gary sometimes, and I think that's what affects him. So again, if he feels good and he's confident and he's there mentally going into the season, I think the sky's the limit for this guy, as we've been saying. But again, will it translate? That's always the big question. And will he stay healthy? He stayed healthy last year in the 60-game season. He was just terrible. But yeah, I mean, we're all rooting. We make fun and we make jokes, but we're rooting for Gary Sanchez because if Gary Sanchez is the hitter that we know, or he has been in the past, then this Yankees lineup is great 1 through 9 because he's probably going to hit around, I guess, 6, 7, 8. I think we're thinking so. Yeah, man, we need Gary to be Gary if we want long-term success.
I agree. And say it with me because I feel like this is kind of the trend for everybody. Feeling healthy and being able to be in shape. Those are the two things for Gary I think matter well too, because even before he was hitting below 200, he was injuring his groin. He was having issues with being able to jog down the first base line. He always had that sort of hustle problem, but it seemed almost as if he did hustle, he was going to get hurt. So it's good to know that he's feeling good in his own right, whether it's behind the plate, whether it's in the batter's box, or whether it's just health and wellness wise, to be able to put himself together and feel like he can finally get back to what he was. Because I think all of us, whether or not we feel he is quote unquote an MVP, will say you'd be hard pressed to find a Yankee who was as exciting over the last half decade than Gary was when he first came up.
Oh yeah.
And also, speaking on this topic of being in shape, last week on R2C2, CC Spathia and Ryan Rucco's podcast, they had Gleyber Torres on as a guest, and he was talking about how, the comments that came out from Cashman that he wasn't in shape. He basically admitted to it. And he said, it was hard for him to work out because of the quarantine and stuff like that. And, he said after the season, he told his wife, we're not going on vacation. I have to get my ass in shape, essentially. It made me think, and I'm curious, it's a little bit off topic, but I'm curious if you guys had this same thought. I think last year when the season started, we were just too wrapped up in the excitement of it and having baseball back to think this way. But I kind of feel like, you kind of have to take 2020 and throw it away because it was so strange for so many reasons with the protocols during the season, the empty stadium, the long break in between spring training and the actual, season beginning. I kind of feel like with Gary, we have bad taste in our mouth because he's performed poorly before. But I kind of want to just take 2020, forget about it and throw it in the trash and see what an actual real season looks like from a lot of these guys. Gary being one of those guys. Same with Kluber. That's just, what I've been thinking the last few days is like, should we really even worry ourselves with 2020 too much when it was such a strange year?
We also didn't win, so it didn't matter.
Of course. I think, truthfully speaking, it can go both ways. In Glaber's case, he was phenomenal the year before, and you could understand how and a lack of ability prevented him from being on that same level, because we've said it before and I've tweeted it before. This is a kid who should be up there with the Fernando Tatises and the Juan Sotos in terms of being talked about as the greatest young stars in this game right there. And, I think one day he will get around Fernando Tatis money because of how awesome he is. So it's not unsurprising for me to see him. Gary, on the other hand, I don't throw it out as much because of how poor his year was before that. I think it kind of rings true in that same sort of light that this guy had something wrong with him in terms of whether it was his batting stance, whether it was his defense screwing him up mentally, whether it was him not being in shape. But I am man enough to admit, and I've said it before on this podcast, and I've said it on Twitter a numerous amount of times, that if he is good, I'll eat my crow because of how good of a player that he is. And in that respect, it's a new season. I'm willing to say to myself, let this guy be what he was supposed to be and what he has proven he can be before, because 2020 doesn't need to define him despite how terrible his 2020 was. But also, I don't want Greg Bird syndrome. If it smells like a duck and it looks like a duck and it tastes like a duck, then it's a duck. If he, in Greg's Bird case, if he isn't good, if he's off injured, if he doesn't get hits, then he stinks. And he should have been let go a year before that. And they kept him around because of that crappy swing and a drive home run that we all love so much. So
swinging a drive to run.
Don't say it. I hate that home run because of that, because they kept that guy along way too long. So,
Mute him.
the fact is, with that in mind, I don't want Gary to become that, but I will give him another chance because of 2020 and some of the good points you made, Josh.
That's a fair point, Jules. That's a fair point. You don't want that Greg Bird syndrome. You're 100% right.
The best thing we can hope for is that Gary just continues to hit the ball the way he's hitting, and he doesn't get into any slump, because it does seem like that this guy, again, I don't know if it comes to his confidence issues or, mentally, but when he's slumping, man, he literally looks like he's not a major leaguer up there. Like, it's just like the worst thing we've ever seen at the plate. And that's not what you want. And
I always kind of equate that to the idea that I think catchers have it a lot harder because of how involved in the game they have to be outside of the offensive side of thing.
That's true.
Stanton stinks.
You got Garrett Cole.
You
got Garrett Cole interviewing you I love that, by the way, that intensity. Every time he's talking to Gary, which we love too, because he wants to. That's another. I can go into that.
But that to play off of what you said, I think is why maybe a guy like him slumps so much harder. But it's hard because if that's what you're looking at, and if mentally speaking, you're somebody who doesn't handle a slump well because you're a catcher who has to be involved in these other aspects of the game, and you know that your defense is as criticized as your offense is, then it's hard. So you hope that he starts the season good. Nothing would make me happier than Gary Sanchez doing what he's doing now to start the regular season. Yeah, even if he ends with a 260 average and hits 30 home runs, and you're like, all right, great, that's what it is. I don't need. Yeah, that's the Yankees have enough MVP candidates.
Yeah.
Let Stanton or Judge or Glaber or whoever be the MVP.
We don't need them to be MVP. We need them to freaking play.
Yeah, let Gary get big hits when it matters and be a contributing member of the team.
Just don't be a black hole. That's it.
Yeah, it's true. And forget your defense, because if you hit, 50 homers and drive in over 100 RBIs, even if he doesn't do that, but if he hits 30 homers and drives in 100, then I don't care if he has 6 pass balls.
Yeah.
The Yankees will make the playoffs anyway.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Keep it at 6, though. Keep it at 6.
6 in one game?
I literally still have when in, what is it, 2017, the game 2 where he literally just dropped the ball.
He dropped the ball.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was just like, are you kidding me? That's God. But then here we are 4 years later.
He's had some funny drop balls though, because that one Cashman one or Chapman one that went behind him in that extra inning game, they got back and he threw. I think they were playing Detroit. That's the one that always pops into my head. That's like, this dude is so bad as a catcher sometimes that he almost lucks into being pretty good at it because of how good his arm is. And his arm looks lively. That's one of the things. Last year, it did not look that good, but it seems like in spring he's got that gun back, which is a big part of his game.
Yeah, I think this all comes back to the fact that he's in shape. Yeah. So let's see how it goes.
He's always been in shape, but maybe this year he's actually in shape.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. No, but I think, listen, like, let's just say it. Continue to do what you're doing, build good habits so that when you do get into a slump, you know that you can get out of it. Don't let it snowball into something that ends up being 2020 where you're terrible at the plate, you're terrible behind the plate, you lose your job in the playoffs, and it's a whole disaster. Just build good habits, build a strong foundation, and we will be okay. And I said I meant it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
I agree. All right, before we wrap things up here, any final thoughts on something you've seen in spring training that we haven't really been able to address?
Yeah, for me, Jay Bruce, he's definitely having himself a camp. He seems motivated to make a team. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but he hit another homer today to take his total to 2 in spring training, but he's hitting 455. He's getting on base.
I want him on the bench, man.
He's playing the field and doing at least he's doing a decent job in the field.
Yeah.
So I think you got to keep your eye on that. I think we've talked about it you weren't here last week, but the week before that we discussed it too. Derek Dietrich seems like he's probably
I want him too.
But again, I can't get Mike Talkman out of my head.
I know.
Because he doesn't have options left. But I think Jay Bruce is somebody to keep your eye on, because if he keeps doing this, he's going to really force the Yankees' hand, and he'd be a nice fit on that bench. So keep your eye on
veteran presence and good lefty bat and somebody who can play really well. Ray, what about you?
The one thing I keep seeing is that Aaron Judge keeps getting ring up on low pitches still.
Oh God,
that's never.
But I think that's never going to change. So
it's on him now to adjust and then start.
Yeah. Other than that,
I will say on that point, he needs to blow up, and unless he does, which he probably never will, because he doesn't seem like that type of person. Unless he does, he should continually get screwed by those pitches.
Yeah.
We need him to blow up because it's getting ridiculous. But like you said, it's never going to go away. The one thing I want to touch on is, Jules, you saw this article headline a week ago as well.
Yes.
I of course, I'm not the biggest Giancarlo Stanton fan, but when I saw this article, I got hot. It's his first 2 at-bats of spring training. And I know what this guy's doing. This Dan Martin guy for New York Post. It's a clickbait article. He wants clicks. And I'm the idiot who clicked because I was so furious. But anyway, Giancarlo Stanton not overreacting to slow start. 2 at-bats, dude. And Stanton, I think the next couple of bats hit like a couple doubles the last game. So I know what he's doing. It's journalism. It's stupid. But what an idiot.
You say that with 3 journalism majors.
That's all I had to say.
You need to put that on a T-shirt. It's journalism. It's stupid.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. No, not.
Remember, I'm not a journalist,
No.
baby.
I'm just making fun.
No, I know. That's funny though. It's true though, and I agree.
Oh, wait, Jules is a journalist. I forgot Columbia. Didn't you?
Yep.
Journalism, right?
I have two journalism degrees, but Josh has one as well.
What's your degree?
I'm pretty sure you do, don't you? So, we're all journalists. And I guess we're all, by virtue, we're all pretty stupid, right? So
some people think that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But also there's certain things related to where this guy might work, right?
That's a good point.
That's a good point. A little something on it. But that's a story for a different pod that has nothing to do with this. The one thing I want to touch on is how awesome Corey Kluber and Jameson Taillon have.
Wow, yeah, you're right.
These are 2 guys who we're looking at and want to be a big part of this rotation, and they've all pitched a couple of games, couple of different sets of innings. They struck some guys out. They look confident. They look fun. And you know what? I always kind of thought Corey Kluber was like a go in quiet guy. And it seems like that, but it also seems like he's all about the camaraderie and stuff like that. And I like to see that. I think he's going to fit in really well here. And I said this to you guys the other night. I have a really good feeling about what these two can do if they're on. I look at those 90s Yankees teams and some of the underrated pitchers that they had, and these guys that would come in here, maybe a journeyman like a Doc Gooden who had been there and done that with the Mets and helped them win in 96 and stuff like that. And I could see guys like, Tyone and Kluber kind of being that, a guy who has nothing to lose, has everything to prove to his new team, and comes here and pitches really well. And if spring's any dictation of what we might get to see once, the regular season comes around, if these guys can stay healthy, knock on wood, then I think that they're going to be really good. So put it down here that I'm saying it, that I think they're going to be awesome for the Yankees in 2020.
We need it. If we want to win World Series, we need it. So I hope that's the case.
I agree with you 100%. E-Ray, we missed it last week. Josh didn't have anything when I pressed him on it.
I don't really have anything crazy, but I will say, this is all I will say. Happy birthday to our skipper, Aaron Boone.
Oh, yeah. It's true.
And so that's something. He turns always, and he recovered safely from last week where we heard where he had to get a pacemaker. So that's good that he's doing well. I think he was there for the games this weekend, right?
Yep.
Or at least today. But yeah, happy birthday. Turns 48 for Aaron Boone. So happy birthday to you, sir.
Booney, absolutely.
Don't mess anything up.
Yep. Did you guys see the walk-off versus the Red Sox that everybody put down? I feel like that was probably the one clip that was on for his birthday, right?
Probably. Well, that's the best one you can show because
we don't have a World Series one yet. So
they should show the one where he gets hurt in the basketball gym where they.
Yeah. They trade for A-Rod. I wonder if A-Rod wished him a happy birthday. They're forever linked. The only thing that would be more perfect for the two of them would be
if A-Rod becomes next manager.
If A-Rod becomes the next manager, because then they really would be forever linked for in Yankees.
Or I mean, no, I'm not going to go there. Forget it. Nothing.
All right. Well, now you got to say it.
I didn't want to go into personalized. I was like, or if Aaron Boone somehow
dates J-Lo.
Dates J-Lo, but he's happily married. Of course.
Well, that would be the ultimate revenge, though, because he stole his spot on the Yankees and then ultimately won a World Series there, and then he steals J-Lo. But
they have been engaged for a while, but where's the day? Come on in.
Yeah, it's true. And if you read People, I think there was a story somewhat recently that he was like FaceTiming models or something.
I think so.
Oh God, I don't know. Trouble in paradise. But I'm not a gossip columnist, so I can't go out there and tell you what's really happening. That's just all I hear.
We're not the New York Post, Dan Martin.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the exciting stuff. Spring training continuing for the Yankees, and we're going to be here every step of the way because, believe it or not, boys, we're only about 3 weeks out from the start of Yankees baseball, and it's going to be really exciting.
And I think we have a spring training game on TV every day this week until Monday. I read.
Yep. So, and pretty soon we're going to get the Michael K. John Sterling reunion. I believe
I'm pumped for that. I'm hyped.
That's on Monday. It's a night game, if I'm pretty certain. Correct?
I think. I'm not too sure.
I believe it. I'll look it up right now.
That would make sense. That would make sense if it is because of the Michael K. show. But
schedule. I'm looking it up. You said it was Monday, correct, Josh?
The 15th, yeah.
Yeah, so Monday the 15th, it is it's an afternoon game, 1:00.
Oh.
Yankees versus Phillies. So
tomorrow's a night game. I know that.
Yep.
First time
tomorrow's a night game. Yep, first night game on. Yes, it's going to be exciting. Pop down, just like you'd be watching a real game. 6:35, but more or less, you turn on your TV when you get home from work, have a little dinner, and get ready to watch the Yankees, as we'll be doing in 3 weeks from now when it actually matters. But that's going to do it for us here inside this episode of Our Little Yankees Podcast. As always, you can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, as well as SoundCloud. And you can watch our videos of OLIP, every single episode, on YouTube. Just go to the Our Little Yankees Podcast playlist We also have a Twitter account that you can follow to keep up to date on everything related to OLIP. Just follow us at Our Little Yankees Pod, which is the best place to find everything for us. You can follow each of us on Twitter at Julian Coltree, at He11, and at E-Ray Chosen One. Till next time, folks, we'll catch you on the flip side.